So be patient and we'll get through the night, okay?
Thank you, Ms.
Just one more caution, if you think you want to speak, you have to fill out a blue paper. So you can get into the council meeting and decide you want to say something, you have to fill out a paper, okay? And it has to go to the mayor, just a remembrance.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. We have a couple more minutes. We'll get underway. All right, it's 5:30. I'd like to call the Eufaula City Council meeting to order. Ms. Scott?
Councilor Morgan. Here. Councilor Barton.
Here.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Councilor Upton.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Hickman.
Here. All right, we're ready to rock and roll on this thing. Item 3, consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance 24-4-1, pending language in the current ordinance regarding juvenile curfew days and effective times.
So, Mayor and Council, this is, we're picking the item up from our last meeting. The question is, there was 2 issues. One issue was in the old ordinance, Friday was not specifically called out to have a curfew time. And part of this ordinance is to clean that up. So there's no question about what days there's a curfew and what the curfew is on those specific days. Okay.
And Friday, it doesn't really it doesn't mention a time either.
That's correct.
Okay, so I got that ordinance pulled up right.
So we wanted to clean that up. All right. Then as part of that conversation, it comes down to, because of some of the recent activities that our police departments had to deal with and some fights and different things that happens every year. This is a current issue. And the question comes back to, steps up to, is the curfew time satisfactory? Does the curfew time need to be adjusted? And which is part of the decision that we're asking you to make. Now, the police department has some information that they'd like to give you that's related to different issues that we've had. And they'd like to make that presentation to you and to go along with this.
Well, I'll make a motion to let the police chief and the officers make their presentations.
So you got
Guys,
I'm gonna introduce Sergeant Mike Harris. He's presented the PowerPoint presentation for the city council.
Also, we can turn the lights off. Good evening, honorary city council. My name is Sergeant Mike Harris with the Eufaula Police Department. I talked to you guys earlier, I believe in the month, about the juvenile delinquency and bullying problem that we see in Eufaula as a community. I want to apologize for some of the language not being 100% clear, as it has been made aware to my attention through numerous outlets. My phone's been ringing off the hook since that last presentation, so I wanted to clean everything up, give everything to you guys extremely straight and without confusion. So again, Sergeant Mike Harris, I'm the ICAC investigator with this region for the county. I also cross commission with Light Force and I'm fully employed with the Eufaula Police Department. I'm also the school resource officer coordinator, so I'm in charge of the school resource program for the city of Eufaula. Patrol sergeant, a Navy veteran of 15 years. Morning, this presentation will go over topics and material that some might find uncomfortable. Your discretion is advised. I'll give another warning before we actually show the video. The next thing I want to 100% make clear is that the city of Eufaula, especially the police department, does not purport to know what is best for the citizens. We don't purport to be anybody's parents, and we don't purport to know what is best for parents. I just want to make that evidently clear. The objective of this presentation is to define, identify, and present solutions for the following behaviors that we've been having to deal with, especially at our sites, be it the Cove, Brahms, Main Street. There have been numerous sites that we've had to deal with. Juvenile delinquency, which we'll define here in a second, but everything from DUIs, public intoxication, reckless driving, assaults, harassment, firearm violence, theft, disorderly conduct. And I wanted to mention, this is just what we've been seeing on the streets. This isn't what we have seen in the school. I will talk to you guys about what we've seen in the school as well.
let me interrupt what you said. Guys, this gentleman's trying to put on a presentation. Let's try to be as quiet as we can so we can all understand. Okay? I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So let's talk about bullying just for a quick second. So according to Oklahoma statute, and the statute comes from the Oklahoma School Safety and Bullying Prevention Act that was just enacted last year, 2023. So all these definitions have been updated as of 2023. This is the new Oklahoma standard for what bullying is. Any pattern of harassment, intimidation, threatening behavior, physical acts, verbal or electronic communication directed towards a group of students or a student. Okay, and this would be the result of anything reasonably perceived as being done with the intent to cause negative educational or physical results. And then we have threatening behavior, which is any pattern or isolated action. The big difference between the two in statute, one constitutes a pattern and the threatening behavior can be an isolated action. So what constitutes a pattern? According to Oklahoma statute 21-425, a pattern of criminal offenses means any two or more criminal offenses that are committed for the same plan, scheme, or activity. So we just need two actions that we can cite of the same scheme, plan, or activity to constitute bullying. What is juvenile delinquency? The term delinquent child means any person under the age of 18 years old, who's violated a federal, state, local, municipal law or ordinance or lawful order of the court pursuant to the juvenile code, which is 10 Adam. That could be anything. For example, we've done many investigations, internet crimes against children investigations in which a child has been found to be breaking the law. Let's just say child pornography, for example. The court can say that this child should not have access to social media. So by violating that access to social media, they would then be considered delinquent. So in order to have bullying, you need to have 3 different elements: intent, repeated, so 2 or more times, and imbalance of power. Imbalance of power can be a lot of things. It could be numerous juveniles on one juvenile. It could be a juvenile that can significantly overpower a juvenile. There are many differences. There are many definitions of imbalance of power, but those are the 3 elements. Bullying can be physical, verbal, relational, and under relational comes social media. It can be digital as well. Talk about cyberbullying for a second, because that's where we got the video from. So I think it's important that we realize these elements. According to CDC, 40% of young people report experiencing cyberbullying at some point. Cyberbullying is any verbal or social bullying that occurs through technology. Over 80% of child sex crimes arise from social media. Only 7% of parents purport to know that their kids have received inappropriate content. Inappropriate content can be sexual or abuse, physical abuse, for example, like a child being attacked. And then we know, based upon the data that has been received and that's been generated through these programs, by going over 54 million texts and 1.5 million hours of phone usage, that 40% of kids are exposed to sexting by the age of 14. So this is one big thing that I really need to hit home. Juvenile delinquencies is civil or criminal. And this is going to be important because we're going to start talking about McGirt consequences. So the state of Oklahoma, again, everything we have to do that talks about juveniles, 10 Adam. So 2-2-301 states, and also Supreme Court case law precedents, that juveniles are, any kind of juvenile infraction is a civil matter. There are very few exceptions where we merge over into the criminal. So what about Native Americans? Again, this is straight from the Oklahoma Bar Association, the federal government. You can read all of that there. 18 USC 5031 and 5043. Juvenile proceedings are viewed as civil rather than criminal proceedings, again, with few exceptions. So what about Native Americans? Well, according to RDA, until case law has changed, regardless of your background, regardless of your blood, regardless of your race, municipal bodies do have authority, because again, it would be civil, and our juvenile department are taking up these cases.
Now, Mike, since you bring this up, officer, talking about McGirt, because I've spoken to several federal agents and attorneys regarding McGirt that are very familiar with it. And they both say the same thing, like, even though like they can't be prosecuted, it's still up to them, once they break the law, that we can still detain them, arrest them, prosecute them until they have to actually show proof that they're Native American. The burden of proof is on them. Is that not correct?
Well, you bring
So
up
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you bring up a few interesting precedents. Let's take what's going on at the border as an example, right? In this country, I cannot go up to you and ask you what your citizenship is, right? I can't just say, hey, you look like somebody like me.
Yeah.
I want to see your papers, right? And so since we are on sovereign land, that is Native American land, I would be very cautious with the predispositions. I think as case law is going, we're seeing what's happening in Tulsa in regards to some citations. I'd be very hesitant to go that far, but yes, as of right
So
now.
you wouldn't, so like say, because you're about to show some videos, you wouldn't say then that you would follow through with like detaining them or anything, even if they just said it.
I could, and again, all of us here at the Eufaula Police Department, we are cross-commissioned with Life Force, so even if that was an issue, that's off the table. But yes, it is civil when it comes to juveniles.
Oh, I see, but once they prove the burden of proof is on
It will
them.
still remain civil.
Yeah, but once they prove it, right? Is that
No,
what you're?
because, for example, like, if we wanted to.
So you would just automatically assume then, is that my understanding?
No, so if I was to take enforcement action, regardless if they're Native American or not, I'm cross-commissioned to take enforcement action. Now, what you're talking about is what venue would it remain in? Since,
No, I'm talking about like, say the moment, like, say, okay, for example, kids start fighting,
yes,
and we have laws with that, that's called assault. I mean, or,
yes,
you know, in some cases are pretty bad, that would use
Right.
attempted murder, you know? But, so if that's the case and a kid is breaking the law there and with these fights, you would just, how would you proceed? Would you go ahead and arrest them and detain them?
so arrest and detain are gonna be.
I mean, I'm just saying, but
Yes,
I mean, you would arrest them.
We would stop and detain. Now, why I don't like to use the word arrest, because arrest means that we can then go forward with the booking process.
But yeah, you would.
We do not have that ability in McIntosh County. We do not have a juvenile detention center. So we can detain,
Yes,
and we can file injunctions,
and
we can file charges, we can file incident reports, we can generate citations. What we can't do is go through a formal booking process.
Yeah.
But we can do that with all juveniles regardless of their national background.
okay, that's what I was getting.
Sorry for the confusion. Why does this matter? So this is some of the stuff we've dealt with in the schools. I'll let you look at it, but I have incident reports for all of those. So we do have a juvenile delinquency problem, and this is not just isolated incidences. Now, what is next is the video. Again, your discretion is advised. A few moments if you wish to get up and not see the video.
He's coming straight from the underground. The young nigga got his back of the ground. And that's the other fellas. What's the next man? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I'm a teenager with a little bit of gold and a major. Sucking my car, looking for the product.
So you follow police department's mission. I can, this is obviously from the website. Our ultimate job is to reduce crime and increase livability. That is what our mission is, and that is what we have all of us in here in uniform that is displaying your crest on our chest. That is what we are trying to do.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
During this, were they local? You follow the residents?
Yeah, so, we're gonna get into, we're gonna break it down a little more. The first, so just for clarification, the first video in which the child is ripped from the truck and
Was that it?
assaulted on the
Was
ground,
that it?
those were local, those were local.
Was that at Brahms?
Yeah, that's just right past Brahms on Main Street. Those two juveniles were local. One of those juveniles has now since moved to Old Mogi, and the other juvenile has died from a gunshot wound to the head. The second video that you saw in which the person was claiming 5-0, that person is from outside of our jurisdiction where he normally lives. And then the third video of those juveniles, obviously I can't say pursuant to Oklahoma Code 10 Adam 1-1-105 because it's an ongoing investigation. But you guys recognize those juveniles from the third video. Those are all local kids, except for one who's from Shakota. But yes,
So there's investigations going on currently with
well,
them?
for the first one, there's investigation going on. Remember, one of the juveniles is dead.
Sure.
The other one has been sent over to the jurisdiction of Okmulgee. The other individual has, yes, the second one has charges, and in the third case, we have charges, and the district attorney is already talking with the people that are involved, and there have been meetings, closed door meetings, because of the nature of being a juvenile. But yes, there's paper on all of this stuff.
And last week you mentioned the last fight happened at 9:30. What time did he get ripped out of the car?
That was happening during the
Cruise night.
cruise night, so whenever it was happening before cruise night was officially disbanded, but yeah, it would have been around that 9 to 10 o'clock time frame.
So around 9 to 10.
Yes,
So probably, okay.
So law enforcement tools, education, public outreach, collaboration, town halls, community partnerships. The reason why those are in red and crossed out is because that is everything the police department has done thus far. I've done educational trainings with our school district. I've done educational trainings with Pittsburgh County school districts. These children, part of agreements within the district attorney's office for crimes adjudicated within venue. I've done one-on-ones, I've done small groups. So every high school student that we have in this venue in our county should have received the training. What is left for law enforcement are citations, community service, municipal law enforcement authority, obviously our tribal law enforcement authority, and then our various district attorney services and partner agencies, whether that's the DA, Department of Human Services, or Juvenile Services. Our vision, you follow police department's vision, is community policing through partnership and collaboration that produces sustainable solution-based initiatives. Again, reduce crime and increase visibility. So what does that mean? What is sustainable solution-based? That means solutions that are long-lasting. We know, and we'll talk about here in a second, right? We know the problem isn't going to work. We know taking away enforcement of law enforcement to enforce laws is not going to help. We know law enforcement not using our discretion and wisdom, meaning hammering everybody. We know that's not going to work. We know physically limiting access to the code and other sites within our community, whether that's Brom, Main Street, what have you, physically limiting access to anything will not work. And we know that. Finger pointing, we also know will not work. So what are some sustainable solution-based? Obviously, we're talking about collaboration with our community partners, which is you, to set an appropriate curfew. There's a lot of different things we can do, but ultimately, right, parents have the right to parent, and that's what has been the theme that I've received continuously since the last time I talked with this body.
Since you talk about like solutions, you can go back to the next. Like, because we want to definitely help with any solutions, but I mean, absolutely. That's our goal. You know, we want a very safe place to live. Like, so like one of the things that, because I mean, fights aren't new here, right? I mean, like I remember growing up, and I'm sure many of y'all as well. Like, I mean, man, there used to be like a fight like every weekend, and especially at the Cove. But one of the things that happened was like when they parked a car right there, I mean, that like shut it down, you know, because I mean, they would park right there at the Cove. So, I mean, has
Well,
that,
in the second video where he's saying he's 5 and 0, you can still see the law enforcement lights in the background. I know my chief can speak to it. I can speak to it. We're told to fuck off, in quote, all the time. So this idea that parking a cruiser there is going to somehow scare or intimidate kids is far from the case. And the truth is, or you follow police departments, we don't want to scare or intimidate children. I personally do not believe it. I will not police in a way in which I'm seen as a tyrannical figure. But yes, are there high saturation patrols we can do, high visibility law enforcement like we have up there? Absolutely. And I think that partnership is great. One of the things I have asked last time I was here is for anybody to do a ride along during these saturation events, to sit in my passenger seat and see things through, an officer see things through a frontline supervisor that has to make some of these hard decisions sometimes. I haven't had anybody take me up on that yet, but the offer still stands. My door is always open to those who want to see the community through a lens of a frontline supervisor. But yes, I believe ultimately, and I believe that this community ultimately wants parents to parent, and I know that's the mantra that I can take here. So what I want to do at the very end here is I just want to fact check some of the misinformation that has come out from the curfew proposal. So I want to say emphatically, without equivocation, that the purpose of the Eufaula Police Department is not to generate revenue, generate citations. I think transparency is important. I've included my citations for you. When it comes to child accountability, I am going to be that accountability figure. I have held juveniles accountable in this venue more so than probably any officer before me. I've written more warrants on our school district alone, probably than Eufaula has in totality in many, many years. And I can tell you, since I have started this job, since I took the job at Eufaula PD a year and a half ago, I have written a total of 22 citations, 0 citations to any juvenile except for one, and it was a warning citation. And on that same day, Teacher Thompson, who's been at the school district over 30 years, also received a warning citation for the exact same thing. We are not here to generate revenue, and we are not here to exploit our children. And I find it very, very, very personally upsetting. I've policed a lot of places. I'm very passionate about this. I've looked Antifa and Black Lives Matter face to face. I've been called a lot of things. I've served my nation for over 15 years, but never until I came to Eufaula, Oklahoma, has anybody challenged the integrity of this department or challenged the integrity of the officers more so than Eufaula, more so than this community. I have never exploited children for money. We will never exploit children for money. And the idea that we will charge people curfew tickets and not police the trouble is ridiculous. Since I've taken this office, we have arrested 3 child molesters, 3 different states, monsters. This ICAC investigator team has consists of me and Officer Brian. So the idea that we are just here to make money and the idea that we're just here to needlessly attack our children, exploit our children for revenue is disgusting. I know that by saying that, I might lose my rank, I might lose my badge, but ultimately I have one person that the most important thing to me is the reprisal of my God, Yeshua HaMashiach. So I will not stand, I will not stand behind my officers. I will stand in front of them, and I will defend everything that we've done thus far in ensuring that our children are safe. So the next one, that we want to meet this 10 o'clock curfew with a hammer. I can tell you without equivocation, the curfew and the curfew limits, just like we have them at 11 now for most days, we do not go around at 11:05 and start hammering children. The curfew is a last resort. That is how it's always been. That is how municipal entities have seen it since the dawn of time. So curfew facts. We want parents to parent. We want mentors to mentor. We want the community to show up. The United States Police Department will respect and uphold all exemptions, and we know there will be many. We know there will be exemptions for children going to school activities, for work. We know kids are going to be out just because they're going to be out, and that's okay. We will uphold all constitutional activities, and we will act within the confines of the law, and we will ensure from our frontline supervisors and our administrators that that is done. We will act at the lowest threshold possible. And if we do get a curfew for a lower time, again, we will not penalize them. By lowest threshold, this is what I mean. It's curfew. Is there a place you can go? Can I help you get there? That's all we want. That's all we want the ability to. I don't care if it's 11:15. I don't care if it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Routinely, I go to different places. The gym is a great example. I see juveniles there all hours of the night. And I'm glad that they're doing something productive. Nobody, as far as I'm aware, can show where we have generated citations for curfew for no reason, just because of time. Again, this is a last resort, because when you are citing somebody, you are detaining them. You are saying they are not free to go pursuant to Terry versus Ohio, reasonable suspicion, right? You are taking away their rights. So this is a last resort. We want children to be respectful. We want children to have fun. And we want them to get to where they're going safely. Now, why do we need a last resort? Because as you will see, there are many people that are wanting our children to be delinquent. There are many people that are encouraging children to break the rules. So we know that we're going to need children that are going to disregard anything we say anyway.
They put my son on what video?
Oh,
So what about children rights? So there's this idea that we're trying to violate our children's rights, we're trying to violate civil liberties. And again, as somebody who took the oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, when I was 17 years old, that oath has no expiration. It will never expire, and I will always hold to it. So who decides what's right for children, right? Why can't children vote? Why can't they buy alcohol? Why can't children buy marijuana? Why can't they buy tobacco? Why can't they get a gun? Why can't they get a tattoo without supervision? And let's talk about what's happening in modern day 2024. That's a real one, right? Parents have a right to parent. Based upon the most recent academic studies, that teens' brains don't fully develop until they're 25 years old. Let's do a case study. Supervision versus spying. What's the difference between spying on your child and spying on your husband and wife or adult child? Even though you agreed to share your life together, spying on your spouse is still illegal. Your partner or adult child have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So why is it, and I'm sure there's many people here, I'm sure yourselves included, monitor your kid's phone? Because that's supervision. There is an expectation that children will be supervised. There's an expectation that children will be protected from themselves. Another one is that law enforcement doesn't care about our kids. Right? We don't care about our kids. We don't care about enforcing applicable laws, statutes, ordinances. So what can we do? Right? We do not have a juvenile detention center here in this county, but we can detain. We can't lodge, but we can detain. And ultimately, that child will be released to a competent party, whether that party is the state, a parent, or other applicable guardian. So what can happen is we can cite it. Let's just say 11 o'clock rolls around, because that's 11 o'clock on Thursday. We're able to stop, talk to a child. That child doesn't want to go home. That child refuses to cooperate with any lawful authority. Well, at that point, we can then detain, and then we can try to notify a parent. We can issue that citation if necessary. Say the parent can't show up because the parent is inebriated, or in many cases, we have kids from out of state, Texas, Arkansas. This is, like you call it, this is where people come to be patriotic. Let's say we numerous times have juvenile parents are in Broken Arrow, OKC. Parent cannot come, well then we have to activate what's called a joint response with the Department of Human Services. And we use our MDT, our multidisciplinary teams, to come forth and assist us. Remember, juvenile adjudication is civil, it is not criminal. Our goals, we want children and families to enjoy themselves. If contact is required, we want to de-escalate. The more time that you give this body, time is our friend. The more time we have to ensure that the safety of our children and communities, we can make parent notifications if needed, and we can do it in a timely manner. We can ensure proper guardianship of children is done if notification is needed. And ultimately, we can address the delinquency that's out of town, because we know there's a lot of out of town delinquency. And so when you have parents that are not even within our jurisdiction, again, that takes time. Police want kids to pass out somewhere else. No, we don't want kids to pass out anywhere. We don't want kids to be unsafe anywhere. We don't want kids to be harmed anywhere. But these parents are right. Parents don't want their children unsupervised in the county. Parents realize their children may not always make the best decisions. Parents realize that peer pressure is a real thing. But what's the difference between city and county? Parents understand, because they have talked to me, that at least within the city, there are services readily available, whether that's law enforcement, fire, or EMS. Now let's talk about bad apples. There's this idea that we have bad apples within our community. We have this idea that the problem is within a few. I'm going to reject that notion. What context is a bad apple? The word bad apple holds zero objective meaning. In the abstract, before I started this presentation, we could have talked about, is beating a child senseless and causing facial or skull fractures by the heel of your foot numerous times, is that a bad apple? Is ripping a child from the car and beating him, breaking ribs, is that a bad apple? Or how about 5 to 6 juveniles attacking and assaulting one juvenile? Is that a bad apple? We can talk about that in the abstract. Be honest, we all know who these children are. We all know who the parents are. And I would argue, in that video at the Cove, every one of those children come from a good home. Better home than I came from. So where does the accountability come from? Who's going to tell their parents that they're the bad apples? That's why Eufaula, this city of Eufaula, and the Eufaula Police Department will not use that terminology, because we don't believe in it. Let kids be kids. It's just rules. They were meant to be broken. Have fun, kids. You only get these years once. So yes, I fully expect, regardless of what you set the curfew to be, children are not going to abide by it, because they're being told not to. They're being encouraged not to. Again, let's remember, academic science, nature's brain is not fully developed until 25. But we want kids to be kids. We just have to remember that juveniles are not the same as adults. We want juveniles to be out as late as you want them to be. We don't care. The Eufaula Police Department does not care how late your kids are out. All we ask is that they're supervised. Our prom event this last year, me and Officer Brian went to it. We had 170 children, and we had a handful of us, maybe 7 volunteers at the most. We had 0 incidents. We believe that if there was no adult supervision, that the outcome would have been the same. No, that's why you only entrust your children to go to the prom when you know there is proper supervision. You can't coach or mentor or parent if you don't show up. Ultimately, we want your kids to be kids. We want them to have as much fun as possible. And we don't care how late you want them out. All we ask is you supervise, or all we ask is you show up. And again, it doesn't have to be one parent for every child. Again, I think prom is a great example. Majority of parents were not there. It's accountability, supervision. Ultimately, we want parents to parent. We want to empower parents. We want to partner with parents. We want to collaborate with parents. We want to protect children. We want kids to be kids. We want to reduce crime. We want to increase livability. And we know that children cannot parent themselves. That's all I have for you guys. For everybody here, I will stay after for anybody that wants to talk with me until the very last person is gone. If you have any questions, I will not leave. I'm not the kind of person to present material and not stay after and be accountable for it. Thank you.
Towards Ms. Cox, please. Patty Daniels.
Well, I have had actually 2 incidences that have happened to my grandkids. One 2 years ago, my granddaughter, who was 20 at the time, and a competitive volleyball player, decided to gather, visiting from Oklahoma City, decided to gather friends that she knew from around here, go down to the Cove and play volleyball. It was about 10:30, 11 at night. She's 20, so were her friends. Figure they're just gonna have a fun game. Bunch of kids down there started to harass them. They're girls, mind you. They said, leave us alone, we're not doing anything, blocked them from getting in there. They decided, okay, we're done with this, blocked them from getting out. They finally got away from there, started to head home. These kids followed them to my house outside of city limits. And I was not home at the time, but they proceeded to shoot at my house and my windows with those airsoft guns. So I came home to scare kids, broken windows, and, luckily they were chased off. But this was 2 years ago, not acceptable. Last year, I'm on Main Street with my grandson and one of his friends working on planters. Granted, a little later at night to avoid traffic. Kids come right down Main Street in a vehicle and start shooting at my grandson and his friend with the airsoft guns, thinking it's really funny. It is not at all. Those kids got hurt trying to get away from these kids trying to be funny. Anything could have happened. It's just not acceptable. And it just tells me that this is not changing. My grandkids will not go down to the cove. And they're older, and they deserve to not have to be at 10 o'clock curfew. But they will not. They don't dare. But if you can't be at the cove, you can't be on Main Street, you can't be at Rom's, it's not fair, it's not right to have to even worry about if your kids, grandkids are out just trying to have a little bit of fun, are assaulted, screamed at, cussed at, things of that nature. It's just, to me, it's just not acceptable and it's not changing. So obviously something needs to change for this to be able to be a better environment for kids to be in. Because even though my grandkids don't live around here, they visit here. It is not okay for them to not be able to go out in public for fear of what's going to happen to them if they happen to say a remark that somebody doesn't like, or they're not from here, which is what the case they said, is they weren't from here, they didn't deserve to be down there. It's just not acceptable to me. So I think something has got to change.
Patty, you bring up a good point, and that was kind of my.
Discussion between you guys. They can get it out there.
Yeah, she brings up the point that exactly I was trying to make earlier with the presence, because of like both those cases, 9, 10, somewhere in there, it's like both of them. And I live around that area. I see that, like I see, sometimes cars like drag race around the cove a little bit. And I think we've even had one like flip over one time as well because of that. And that's my point with the, the presence right there at those hot spots. So.
Mr. Hale.
My name is Chance Hale. I grew up in this town. I've been here all my life. I've been fighting this town since I was a kid and before I was born. It's not going to stop the fights by putting kids at home at 10 o'clock. It's going to force the kids to the country where there is no supervision or there is no law enforcement to step in and try to help. They might be slow getting there in town, but at least they get there. If they're in the country, they're out in the country where you're pushing them, because kids are going to be kids in after 10 o'clock. I mean, everybody here knows that. When you take and close the town, I was told when I was young, don't leave town. You stay in town, son. You had to stay in town because you had law enforcement, and you had officers to protect your children. They don't grow, they can't mature, and they can't become adults if they're not around other people and learn how to dictate and handle themselves. The ones that can't handle themselves, that's where they're supposed to step in and do something to them or to their parents that are not taking care of them. But you don't close the community, you don't close the town down to try to stop something. That's not going to stop anything. That's not going to stop these kids from doing what they're doing. They've been doing it from the beginning of time. They're going to keep doing it. You're just going to put them out in the country where there's nobody to save them. And I do agree it's getting more violent. It is getting more violent. Our community, our nation is getting more violent. But we're doing this all across the country and it's not helping. This is not the way you stop your children from doing this. You stop your children by forcing their parents to be parents. Put more laws on the parents. My 8-year-old called the police department, 911, 80-something times. I couldn't stop her. She talked to her daddy, her real daddy, every night on the phone on video call. So every time she got the phone, he got the phone, he's pushing the button, want to talk to daddy. Cost me a $600 ticket. He wrote it to me, or had it written to me. I didn't think he was a bad officer for that. But I paid that ticket and I tried my best to straighten it out. I don't think I would have got it stopped. I mean, but it got better. The only way to stop this is by officers doing their jobs and what we've hired them to do, protect and serve our community. Not by stopping the ones that are good kids, because you're talking about, let's say there's 20. How many kids are in our district? How many kids come here in the summertime? How many kids are in this town? How much money and revenue is brought to this town? And when you close it down, you stop all that. Plus, you take our kids away from being able to grow as adults and learn where to be and where not to be and how to handle themselves in those situations. I don't believe it's right to close our town down at 10 o'clock because of the few. You don't change government for the minority. It's for the majority. And that's their job to protect us. And I think they do a great job. I think our officers do a great job. But there should be something else they could do, maybe more to the parents or maybe more to the children. I don't know, but you don't punish the children in our community for it. 10 o'clock, really? They don't get back from basketball games and baseball games and football games for that. And then go to town and see the town after that, or go huddle up and talk about what they did or how the town went or how the game went. That's what we are as a tourist community. We're not supposed to have tourists come here and be able to play volleyball. Or why do we have those courts then? I mean, late at nights, a lot of times, the only times you can get on. If our town was like it used to be. But we keep shutting the town down and closing the town down. And all we're doing is hurting our children and causing them not to be able to handle themselves when they go to college and they leave here. We need to teach your kids to do better. And our cops need to do more to them, the ones that are home. That's just my opinion. A 3-year-old cost me $600. My 18-year-old messes up, I expect it to be more than that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Crutchfield.
Back to the incidents that happened at Brahms when they had the all of a sudden cruise night or whatever it was. Happened to be the one time I didn't come to town with my grandkids. I have grandkids that live in Henrietta that obviously someone has blamed for the fight down there. They come over here all the time to cruise night. Just unfortunately, I wasn't there. They came out. It was not another kid who approached them. It was a parent who tried to get them to pay her $45. She's on video, and nothing has been done. We have thousands of dollars in damage on a truck because they pulled guns and were beating on the truck as the kids were trying to leave because they were not going to pay this lady $45 to fight against her son in a bet. The video was all over Facebook, Instagram, whatever all. I have a copy of it. Clearly shows the parent and the kids. Those people were mostly from Haiti. And it's just ridiculous that can happen. And one of the kids with them was 14 years old. He was hit in the face. He has a broke face, broke nose, and nothing done. Not a thing. And why? Because there's no eyewitness. Video's not good enough? I don't know. Things like you have a video and nothing's going to be done. Maybe my grandson's mouthed off or something. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I just saw a video of them leaving in their vehicles. You've got a mom, son, other adults chasing them, throwing gang signs, cussing, and meet the truck. You know, my grandson works hard. He paid for that himself, you know, and now he has to pay about $8,000 in damages. So I just don't understand why nothing was done and nothing is not going to be done, I guess. And talking about the kids having to leave town at 10 o'clock, I agree a curfew should be in place Sunday through Thursday night when school's going on, maybe. But of course, kids come back from the ball games, they get in town at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30. They want to go through McDonald's, they want to go through Taco Mayo, they want something to eat. They're going to be in town, get something and go home. The only thing a 10 o'clock curfew is going to do is put the good kids who follow the rules at home. Those who are breaking the rules that are causing the problems, they're not going to, they don't care about your 10 o'clock curfew. They're still going to be out causing trouble. And by the way, the incident was 8 to 8:30. 8 o'clock, so long before 10. And then what happens in the summer? We have 4th of July, we have Mohawk, we have all kinds of events going. They have events down on the other beach, I believe, sometimes. What happens, are the kids supposed to pack up and go home at 9:30 when fireworks start this year? When they drive into town by themselves? Do they just go, they don't get to watch the fireworks? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider with this curfew. And summertime should be an exception sometimes, or holidays, something, because I know I'm always there. We camp out at Extreme all week on 4th of July. Our kids are out. They stay out till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning playing basketball at the court. Are they supervised? They don't think they are, but of course we're watching, but that's how, it's just, I don't know. I just don't see how nothing can be done about the Bronx incident with video. That's all I got to say. Oh, and by the way, the kids at prom, since the police were out and they couldn't have go to proms or whatever they said, they celebrated prom in the cemetery. So great job.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Goodwin.
I made some notes because I have a whole lot to say about this, but I know it's more than what I'm allowed, 5 minutes. So I just put down the highlights. But one of the things I don't have is his presentation. What Mike's telling me is there's all these laws that these kids have broken with these videos, and they can't do anything about it. How are they going to enforce the 10 o'clock curfew? They're beating other kids, numerous ones jumping on others. They're beating vehicles, tearing up property, and they can't do anything about it. How are we going to enforce 10 o'clock curfew? So all that's going to do is make the kids that are willing to follow the rules and the laws go home, and the other kids, they're not going to be able to do anything too. The problem's not the kids, okay? Punishing everyone, all these kids, is not the answer. It's never been the answer for anything. We got people that go to a bar and get drunk and drive home and have a wreck and kill people. Are we going to shut down all the bars? I don't think anybody in here is pro gun control where we take away everybody's guns. Well, there's people that go and do school shooting. There's people that shoot people all the time, take away their guns. Now we're going to take away their knives. Come on, y'all. This is not the way to do this. There's all kinds of things that we can do. Now, will this work? Absolutely. You know how I know it'll work? Because I've seen it during the Don Murray rain. We all seen it. You drive through town at 10 o'clock at night and it's a ghost town. There's nobody in town. Why? Because he told the officers, you go downtown, anybody sitting on the street, you write them a ticket. Anybody you see dragging main, you write them a ticket. They're out after curfew. So finally, the kids left. They left town. They wouldn't come into town anymore. So will it work? Absolutely. It will. Okay. What I did when I took over, I went to the school and invited them all out. I told all the kids, I said, come downtown, enjoy the night, enjoy your summer. Don't throw your trash down. Don't fight. Don't do donuts in the parking lot. Behave yourself and you will be able to enjoy your town and your beach. Well, they're not perfect. We weren't perfect. I wasn't a perfect chief. What I had to wind up doing is the officers called me out at 10 o'clock at night, and I went down to the code. There's 150 kids down there. I went down there and spoke to all of them. I don't know how many of them videoed me on their phone. And I told them, I said, y'all are gonna run this. Stop doing donuts, stop playing your music loud. I gave a whole speech, okay? Then I told the officers, when you see them ganged up down there, when you see them at Brahms, get out of the car, talk to them, get to know these kids. Let them know that you're there for them. You're not there just every time they screw up. It's called community policing. It works. We've tried hard-fisted law enforcement throughout this country for years, and it never works. Small town, all the way up to LA, it don't work. All you're gonna do is punish the good kids that follow all the rules and go home, okay? I'm gonna tell you, and here's where I'm gonna step on toes. I knew this was coming because that man is not a police chief. He has no law enforcement experience. He told me how to do my job, and if I wasn't gonna do it his way, all right, I'm out. Now, this is what you got. Y'all are the ones that are in control of this. You got to make a decision. Do you want to shut this town down and run everybody out of here because a few of them are bullying and beating up other kids? Yeah, it'll work. Or do you want to do something about it and really get back to community policing and not put these officers against your whole community?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Albro.
Of course, they come with paper, right? So I don't have a dog in this fight, honestly. My children, unfortunately, moved away. But I do remember my youngest feeling like I didn't get everything stapled, so my apologies for not having this whole thing stapled. My youngest did feel like he couldn't go down to the cove comfortably, and that he couldn't go to Brahms comfortably. I didn't know really what time of day or night, just if they were gathered, if that makes sense. I hope I'm getting enough copies. Here you go. So what I gave you are a couple of articles from the Marshall Report. Marshall Report is a journal on law enforcement. It's just basically, it's all, everything they write about has to do with law enforcement, okay? And they had a couple of articles on curfews. I looked up curfews, both sides of this business, right? And basically what it comes down to is curfews don't work. And there's several reasons for that. I'm not as passionate as everyone else says. I didn't have an experience here or anything like that. I love our police officers. We have task force cars, actually, all their cars. And I feel like they do a really awesome job, and I feel like they've exhausted every possibility to fix this problem. And I feel like we're asking for exactly what they should be asking for because they have nothing else to ask for, right? Because the problem is we're not doing our job as a community. We have nothing for these kids to do. Like they said, their frontal lobes are not developed. And if we don't give them something to do, they're gonna make it up on their own. And as you saw by those videos, they're not very good at that. They come up with some pretty poor choices, right? Because kids are kids, unfortunately. Some of them don't have as good opportunities as others, so maybe it's a little harder for them, right? Maybe they act a little worse. Well, in any case, I think law enforcement is doing everything they can. I would not for a minute say they're not, right? And I think I know them pretty closely. Not because I did anything wrong, because I did not. But just stating that back. Curfews just don't work. And those studies will tell you that. In fact, the governor of Texas put a kibosh on any curfews whatsoever in the entire state as of June 9th last year because they don't work. Okay, they cause problems. One of the problems they cause is they create an us and them effect with teens and parents against police officers. And it creates a hate and fear against police officers. Anybody remember the 90s? Some of you, I'm sure, grew up in there, that time frame, when we were basically taught to hate and fear cops, right? I wasn't. My dad was one. So that was my safety place. But that is not true for everyone. That is not how people are all brought up to believe. We don't want to let it last for generations. You got people like James and Tisha and Todd who have lived their entire lives. If they had had a bad experience with an officer, they may have taught their kids that same fear, right? So you don't get over that hate very quickly. You cause that problem, it's now cultural and generational, right? The kids that need to comply with this won't, right? Those kids that are having a bad day might end up in our judicial system. And, you know, it was one bad day and then they got sucked in, they didn't know how to handle it, their parents aren't good about handling it, whatever it is. And it just created a block for much of their life, right? Empty streets lead to more violence, frankly, right? Not by necessarily kids, by the way. So the biggest thing here is that I think we just don't have anything for our kids to do. We need to address rec, you know, like a rec center type thing, having more rec activities like club sports, lacrosse, archery, swimming. I can go down the list, right? There are grants that can suffice those. I've brought grants up a million times over. I'll bring it up again. We can promote community service. Where I'm from, you can't graduate high school without 20 hours of community service as a high schooler. Community service is an awesome thing. Learning to volunteer, learning to go out and find a place that wants to work with you and do work at a professional level and learn to be in a professional setting that is not a restaurant or something like that is a great opportunity, right? It also keeps kids busy. And then, so I'm losing my place, sorry. So I'd like to see, I know that you need, I kind of feel like you need the curfew because I think you've done everything you can do. And I'm just like talking to David because I know he's not doing anything. He's not trying to hurt anyone he's doing what he thinks is right for this community. And so I don't think a curfew is a bad thing. I just think 10 o'clock is kind of out of control. And I think maybe phase into it so you don't freak the kids out too much and so you keep that relationship. That relationship is so critical and so important. I was lucky in my community in Colorado Springs to have a good relationship with our officers. They were very prevalent, but military base type situation. So I want other kids to have that and feel safe around officers. I think you have some key indicators that you can monitor. Like, what is the reaction? How are kids' visit working, right? Are we reducing fights or are we just increasing arrest or detaining? I think we should be pursuing those grants for a rec center. I think we should be attracting businesses. This should be an initiative for economic development. We need arcades. We need go-karts. We need ice skating rinks. 10 seconds. Thank you. Free personal development courses for low-income families for their parents and the kids. And we need sports teams that are not necessarily school. Not everybody plays baseball, basketball, and football. And you have my notes condensed. You have the data, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
The board has changed a little since the last time I was here to speak. So I like all the smiling faces. It's not a hit on the place. And I never thought I'd say this in my whole life. Is Chance Hale here? I didn't think I'd ever agree with Chance Hale about anything. But I'm going to keep my words, Chance. I do agree with you. And I have a few areas of expertise, 10 years of superintendent. There's 350 kids up there in that high school. I see them fight every day. It just is what it is. It happens. It happens at noon. It happens at 3. It happens at 5. It happens at 10:30. And everything everybody has said, Patty's situation, Lynn's situation, curfew wouldn't have helped that. Now it's a community problem. It's not your problem. It's a community problem. Like the answer? Absolutely not. I wish I did. But you say there's not bad apples, but 10 years of superintendent, but I also had one of those problem kids. And you have to hold those parents responsible. We have to do it at the school. And if they are the problem, then they need to be taken care of. And just as Chance said, you hit them in that pocketbook, it'll straighten them up. It'll help. It'll straighten them up. I don't think we're looking at a true solution to the problem. Those kids, just like what Lynn said, those kids, they're not gonna adhere to a curfew. I don't care if you set it at midnight, I don't care if you set it at 10, it doesn't matter. Those kids are not going to abide. And the problem is not necessarily the kids, it's beyond that. So you have to address that. We do as a school, we have to do that as a community, and you have to do that as police officers. And I think that is the basis that we need to start looking at. Carol absolutely is right. We used to have a skating rink. We used to have a theater. We had those things. We drove things. I mean, we all had fights when we were kids. I was raised here. A lot of us have it. There was always fights. There was always problems. There was always problems. It didn't matter. I think that we just have to have some kind of solution for it. I don't know if any of us have the solution, but I think it needs to be a community solution. I don't think a curfew is the answer to it. It's not going to matter. And then it's just like everybody said, you've got school events, nobody's home before 10. The basketball game's not even over till 9:30. It just, that won't work, I don't think. But together, I mean, there's a lot of people here. We should be able to come up with some kind of solution. But I think the crux has to be that parents have to be accountable for their kids' actions. And that's my opinion, for what it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon McLaughlin? McCoy, excuse me.
First of all, good evening to you guys, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I was born and raised here in Eufaula, went to school. I think a lot of you know, but I'm a Jones, one set of the Jones. And what I'm hearing is, I agree. I've been in the Department of Corrections. I served 38 years. And I've seen people come through that when they were juveniles, they had issues. And I do agree that it's a community problem. You're not going to solve it with a curfew. You're really not. When you're focusing on one thing, and I understand police, I support them wholeheartedly. That when you don't have nothing left, that's what they feel like they have to do, is the curfew. But it is a community problem. It's something that has been stewing for a long time. Now it's come to a wall, and we're trying to throw something at it. Can't do that. It won't work. I agree that the parents should be held accountable as well for their children. The supervision. Kids are not the same as when I was growing up. We have all this social media, how we can bully. The presentation that you gave was excellent. People don't really understand what we go through being in law enforcement and criminal justice. We don't like getting cussed out and talked to like we're dirt. We have to work together with the community and with the parents of this community to solve this issue. We cannot throw one thing. We keep throwing stuff on the wall and it keeps sliding off. So curfew, I understand why, we wanted to do a curfew, or we're considering a curfew, but it's not gonna work. But what we have to have is a community. We have to also involve the kids in this community. Those kids that are willing to step up and help us resolve this issue. We got some good kids in Eufaula that some of them should be on that board kind of advising, because a lot of things that they don't do, we have no clue. That's why we have a lot of mental health issues going on. Kids committing suicide. Nobody's listening to them. And as a community, we have to stop and listen to them. I got stopped coming from the prom Saturday night. And what I was taught, and we need to make sure that we ensure that with our kids, is you stop, you pull over, you find out what the issue is. What did I do? I had no idea that I was speeding. I had my license out and I had my insurance card out. I was polite. The officer was polite. I gave him all of that, and I explained to him where I was coming from, and that I was tired and all this stuff. And I got a report, and I was very grateful for that because I deserved that ticket for going over 10 miles over the speed limit, I think it was. Anyway, as a community, if we really care about this issue and what they go through, y'all don't understand what law enforcement go through. You need to take a ride with them and see what they go through night after night. How people, especially kids now, I was raised, you were respectful to your I don't care where you was or where you went, you better be respectful. Because if your parents heard about it, you're gonna definitely be in trouble when you got home. And so what I'm seeing is we have a lot of kids that don't have that respect for adults, and especially for law enforcement. I've dealt with Sister Watts too. I call her Sister Watts. Emma Watts. We both worked in corrections for over 30-something years. We've seen the issues that come through that prison. And if the parents don't get a hold of these kids now and what they're doing, they're going to be incarcerated. They're going to be going to visit them and taking money out of their pockets, going to see them and visit them and calling because the kids are calling saying that they're doing this, they're doing that, but they're not telling them what they're doing. I've seen both sides, and I understand that this is a real issue. But again, curfew is not the answer. It's going to have to be the community come together, put a committee together, talk to our kids. It's a gentleman was saying how he went over to the COVID and talked to them. You got to build a relationship with these kids and get them to understand, because they will do the right thing if they say that you're involved with them and you respect how they feel and what's going on with their life and why things are happening the way they are. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Carla Watkins.
Thank you. Everybody's covered that.
Do what, ma'am? I couldn't hear you.
I said, I think everybody's covered what I have.
Okay. Leslie Bassett.
Yeah, I believe.
Okay. Is that Shanna Streets,
Shannon Street's coming.
Covey?
I'm not originally from here. I'm from Norman and moved here 2.5 years ago. And I've gotten to know a lot of people in this room. Worked for the city for a while. And I know how hard they work. And gotten to know several of the officers. And I know how hard they work. And I want to make one quick statement, really kind of on behalf of Brahms. My husband works for them. He works for the corporation. And when he found out that the parking lot has become a serious problem, he spoke directly with Mr. Brahms. And they have ordered all new signs for all the lights on the premises. And they want to work with the police department, whatever needs to be done to kind of discourage loitering from beyond, a customer base and being ridiculous. I don't know how much that will do, but, he felt that might do something. So, and then personally, Carol touched on it a little bit. I have mixed feelings on the curfew. I do, because I feel like it's an interesting situation being here. When I lived in Norman, they tried curfew for a while and it backfired on them. And I was involved with the chamber and a couple other committees. And so I've seen it try to be in place. I've seen what it can do. I've seen, I do understand why we're at this point, because obviously it's gotten completely out of control. But I feel like many people have said this, the community getting involved, but it's going to take creating new businesses, whether it's through a grant program, whether it's through people getting together and actually brainstorming and figuring out a way to reopen that movie theater, figuring out a way to get a skating rink back up, figuring out ways to find things for these kids to do. We are in a rural community. And even in where I'm from in Norman, when they had all of those things, you still had these problems. So they're not going to completely go away. They will be deterred, but they're not going to go away. Even with the curfew in place, it didn't really do anything. But I do understand completely why we are where we are. And I just, I think it should be revisited from the 10 o'clock, in my opinion.
Thank you. Jennifer Ballard.
Hello. I am just a parent that does not agree with it. And I think everyone has stated the facts about the curfew. There are kids and there are going to be kids. And there are good kids and there's bad kids. And the good kids are the ones that's going to end up getting hurt. Because there's nothing else to do. And Brahms is the hangout. I don't know where else they would hang out. Because they're all of them are driving cars, so they park there and sit there. But they do have big fights like they show. But is it every month they have big fights? Does anyone know if it's constant fights? That's what I don't understand. It's like not all the details are getting out there. So I don't know what all's going on. And you know, kids only tell half the story. So I don't know. And I do not think the curfew thing will work at all. Because it's just going to send them somewhere else. I mean, do you want them on a county road? Because I know that the county deputies, there aren't that many of them out on patrol. And then have we thought about the tax dollars? Because if they're sitting at Brahms, they're probably buying ice cream at Brahms. Cutting that off, because they're open till 11, I think Brahms is, so that's tax money coming in. And then Casey's just open. Did y'all consider the tax money at all? And then you've got Extreme, who all those people come to Brahms or Casey's now since it's open. And they're all kids, so they're not going to know the curfews. And if they're on the golf carts, are they going to get tickets? I mean, did y'all consider the taxes too? Was the other thing on my part. That's going to hurt the town of Eufaula. And summer coming up, I think it'll really affect it. And that's just my opinion on it all. Thanks.
Thank you. Laverne Burris.
Geez, I love the video of the sun that y'all talking about. Hold on. I would like to see this video that y'all have my son on. If I can speak, she wasn't here when y'all played the video. The first part of the video, the flyer, when we asked and got permission to do that cruise hike, it wasn't because we wanted to have gang-related fights or kind of fights. It was kids from different towns that had fights, multiple fights. The cruise night was a memorial for her son.
So you guys used a video of my son, which really has nothing to do with your guys', what you guys were talking about, your curfew. Yeah. So why would you use my son, for example, who's not even here to defend himself? Mind you, he's dead. So why would, I mean, why couldn't you use somebody else's videos? Knowing that my son's not the only video, or my son doesn't have the only video out there of a fight that went down in this town.
The first speaker popped up before I made my usual statement. Presentations are 5 minutes at the podium, and the council members cannot engage in conversation with the speaker or answer questions.
Well, she wanted basically the respect. I think that's the main thing that she's asking for, the respect. It should have been, maybe I could have asked her.
Or use somebody else's
Or
video,
use somebody else's
online, for
video.
your guys' little curfew thing or whatever.
And then
I
it
mean-
spoke up one, that, oh, that kid got shot in the head. So she just asked basically for respect and the permission, because that is her son. And, like I said, the cruise night, it wasn't for fights or whatever.
So they use this video for a curfew set in place here in Bowling. But in Bowling, but use just these videos of my kid instead of other videos. It just didn't make no sense. It just don't make no sense. Why would they use that for your guys' cooking thing? I mean, I don't know. It's retarded.
Thank you, man.
Okay, can you speak again? You can only do your 5 minutes.
So do you have any more?
No.
So,
Chief, were you going to say something? Okay. All right. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement ordinance 24-4-1, amending language in the current ordinance regarding juvenile curfew days and effective times. Council?
I would just like to say that I think this became a lot more than what it was, should have been, a lot. I think officers, police, we love you guys. We love how you serve us. We know you serve us, and we appreciate that. And it's nothing to be taken personal, but I know it started out with a great motive and a great discussion, and I think that was the design of it, and I think that's how we all see it. And if anything from this, I think the community is coming together, and so that's the hope and prayer, is that we can come together to work together. And Officer Mike, I appreciate how you offer that, and I plan to take you up. So thank you. But moving forward, I think, I think that the way it was kind of started, I think at the beginning is that we just needed to adjust Friday. I got the ordinance pulled up right here as well. It says Sunday, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. as well. So I would like to offer the option of just putting Friday, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., Saturday, 12 a.m. To 6 a.m., and moving Sunday to 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. and keeping it like that.
I like to say that motion.
Well, I make the motion to do that. Okay, great.
I say.
Let me make sure I've got the motion correct.
You want me to word it again?
I'm kind of slow. Can you repeat that, please?
Let me make sure I've got it correct. You want to make the curfew on Friday nights, 12 o'clock midnight, Saturday nights, 12 o'clock midnight, and Sunday nights, 11 o'clock PM, correct? So 6 o'clock the next.
Yeah, I wrote it down right here. So Sunday, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. But it says Saturday and Sunday right here on the ordinance.
So you want Sunday to be 12 o'clock?
I want Sunday to be 11.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That's how we have it listed.
that's just not how it's written in the ordinance. So that's what I was going to.
So Friday and Saturday is gonna be midnight, and
To
Sunday's
6
gonna
a.m.,
be 11 to 6.
Yes.
Well, to clarify, again, like James, you already made the motion. so.
You can go ahead and discuss until right before a roll call.
Yeah.
And then when Valerie calls the roll, there can be no more discussion. So make sure you thoroughly discuss and ask questions. And I brought one that you could fill in the blank if you wanted to make changes, because you have to have it in front of you in writing. And so go ahead, if you would, and address the other days of the week, even if you want to keep them the same.
I think, Tisha, didn't you bring this right here that shows that that's
The ordinance.
the ordinances and the proximities into other towns and other areas?
Yes, so I presented all the council members, 8 cities that are similar in size, close in proximity, and also lake communities, and just highlighted what their current curfews are. And what we have is pretty much what everyone else has currently. Muskogee, McAllister, Chakota, Henrietta, Broken Bow, Grove, Cowslip. I didn't go out much further than that because it took a little time to find it. I would be surprised if there was anyone in Oklahoma, but I'm not sure that if they had a 10 o'clock curfew on the weekend. That's specifically, I was trying to find that answer, but I just could not. So I feel comfortable as well with James and Roger with keeping the curfew basically the same.
But comment to James is that I was on the council several years ago when we passed the ordinance. It was due to the fact that we looked at the summers, people coming in, community, recreation and so forth like that. And it has been working as far as I know. And so we have, the only change I think where the change is mentioning is that we changed the Friday night from 12 to 6, Saturday from 12 to 6. Others were all 11 to 6.
I do like the idea also of decision on that time frame, but my most important worry is a lot of people want to speak out as the community wants to be involved to help the officers make sure this is done. We have to make sure that we keep our word and do our part. Myself included, everybody that wants to speak, we have to back these guys up and give them some help somehow, some way. Whether it be basketball tournament on a weekend or something at line, or we can provide a cookout for them. Anything to get them involved to where they can grow as a community, our future community. So that's my biggest thing is we need to make sure we stand on our word to help these kids and these officers.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
Mr. Upton. Yes.
Cookout at the Cove.
Well, volleyball, cookout,
Some volleyball
we as a
too.
whole, yes, probably lines up, help these guys. Can't do it obviously.
I know, I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough job.
An advisory council or a committee with our youth, the police officers and our city leaders. Probably look at something like that. Having them involved in city government as well.
Anything else?
James, did you make a motion again?
You made a motion. And you seconded
I
it.
said,
Okay. Any more discussion? No, we're ready to vote.
We're ready to vote.
Counselor Morgan.
Yes.
Counselor Barton.
yes.
Mayor Warren.
Yes.
Counselor Upton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hickman.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that motion has carried. I guess we're ready for adjournment. Oh, we got number 4, that's right. Consideration of acceptance, approval, adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of emergency clause for ordinance 24-4-1, amending language in the current ordinance regarding juvenile curfew days and effective times. I make a motion to approve.
Just, all this does is by making a emergency clause, then all we have to just do a posting.
It takes effect upon publication.
Right, in the paper.
Yeah.
I say.
Counselor Morgan.
Yes.
Counselor Barton.
Yes.
Mayor Warren.
Yes.
Counselor Upton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hickman.
Yes.
All yes, that motion carries.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second.
Counselor Morgan.
Yes. Counselor Barton.
Yes.
Mayor Warren.
Yes.
Counselor Hudson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hickman.
Yes.